The topic today, decentralizing AI from chatbots to automated audit analytics. I'm co-founder and CEO of ChainML. We've been building in this space as a partner of ChainML in the build program from the start, about a year and a half. And what I want to talk to you about today is a little bit about what we see. One, how is generative AI starting to affect products and protocols? We'll talk more about an area that we're very excited about, we think is really emerging, which is around what we call self-service automated analytics. I'll talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges in general, including specifically challenges of centralization, how we think about solving them, and then concluding. As our Mid-Journey generated Bill Gates says, the age of AI has truly begun. So with that, let's talk about what are the areas we're seeing. Like in the last year since ChatGPT came out, we've seen an explosion of interest in generative AI, and lots of Web3 projects and beyond are really thinking about how AI can add value to their products and protocols. Now, I think over the longer term, there's going to be a lot of excitement, rightly, around things like autonomous agents that are operating on chain. But what we're seeing most projects start with is instead saying, hey, how can AI start to improve our user experience, create value in our products? What can we do with AI that's really going to move the needle? And four of the big areas that we see. One is the concept of application chat. So using generative AI to make it easier to use your product, right? It's no secret that a lot of times Web3 projects are have new concepts, and users wonder, like, how do I do an important thing? Like, how do I execute a trade? What does this specific dialogue mean? Should I sign this, right? So being able to just chat and get, in plain text, ask questions and learn how to use a product and execute commands can be powerful. Self-service analytics, that's the focus, obviously, of this talk. And this is an area we see a lot of excitement where often users, whether it's in DeFi, whether it's in insurance, whether it's in collectibles, any number of NFTs, right? Any number of areas where people would want to have analytics to really understand what's going on inside the product, inside the user interface, so they can make better decisions without themselves having to go out and build a whole custom analysis, use a data science notebook, et cetera. So that kind of automated data science. A third that's we've seen a lot is customer support. So a simple version of customer support is being able to get information out of the latest documentation of a project and answer questions. Sometimes that'll extend to things like pulling authoritative sources out of Discord or other community forums to be able to help people use the product, answer their questions. But also, in many protocols where there's APIs, the customer service is really, how do you help developers? How do you help them use the latest version of your product with the authoritative APIs that are out there? And so the ability to basically create a personalized Stack Overflow and generate answers for, hey, I'm using this technology stack, I'm trying to integrate. How do I do this? How do I make it work? That's another area we see a lot of value in driving adoption for protocols. And then lastly, one that you've probably seen is automated content, right? So creating images, creating copy, creating information in context in an application, right? So very often when users are doing things like maybe it's creating an ad or maybe it's writing correspondence, right? There's lots of opportunities to integrate generative AI into applications like that. So these are some of the major use cases that we're seeing a lot of projects use. And of course, part of this is also hopefully, as you think about for your own projects, there's a lot of ways that you can start to enhance your product and use AI to make it better. As an example, one of the customers that we're working with is Space and Time, a decentralized database and a sponsor here, also a close partner of Chainlink's. And we've been working with them on their Houston chat agent. So it's built into their DApp, their user experience, and it does things like make it possible to do application chat, to navigate, to open editors, to use a Chainlink Oracle to write results on chain. Makes it easy to do self-service analytics, running queries, visualizing the results, being able to run forecasting on those, right? So you can do things like look at time series of data on recent blockchain transactions and forecast directionally what might be going on. Also, it provides customer support, answering questions from documentation and generating code to make it easier to integrate, with API integration, right? So this is all something that's using our Council open source framework to build agents with OpenAI APIs in the back end for the large language models. So let's dive into automated analytics. I think it's a very exciting area because so many products have a ton of value to offer their users. There's tremendous data, but making it accessible and useful is often a real challenge, right? So first of all, using a generic chatbot, it can be hard to get access to the data that matters, right? So building this kind of functionality into a product connected to a database that has relevant information can really make a big difference in terms of data discovery, generating accurate SQL, so your users don't have to be a technical expert to get the right information to answer their questions. Then the second thing it can do is really make it easy to make that information come alive and produce intuitive visuals with easy to operate commands to adapt and see the information in a way that makes sense. If you've worked with talented data scientists, you know that if you know API packages like Plotly really well, you can do the same kind of quick visualization, but most users aren't experts in all of these visualization packages. So turning it into a natural, easy to use interface is a big win. Automating analysis, going deeper, not just pulling back data, but asking questions like in this example visual of asking on a marketing campaign, hey, what's driving the performance increase in my campaign? What's going on? It confirms. So one of the things is making sure that you have a nice way of giving users cues about what's going on and confirming intentions from them. But then in the end, it's like, hey, it looks like one site is driving a lot of the clicks, and you can see this bar chart, right? And you can visualize it in other ways, like over a time series. Asking what's causing changes, what are drivers. These are kind of questions that users are often trying to understand, and with generative AI, you can make it dramatically easier. An even further version of this is smart reports and dashboards. So I think you've probably seen somewhere in your career a standard report or dashboard. Often, over time, maybe it's a statement from your portfolio, or maybe it's in a business context, advertising report. And initially, you get one or two charts, and it's really helpful. And then over time, more and more things might happen that get added because they're like, well, it could be this, it could be this, and soon you've got a 30-page report that no one's reading. Right? So boiling it down to what's salient, what are the things that you need to know because it's mattering to you, that is anomalous or interesting, that's a big win, a big opportunity using generative AI instead of traditionally spamming a large amount of information. So these are all things that we think automated analytics is powerful, and why it's such a great thing to add in to your product or protocol to make it more accessible and understandable, to help people understand if they're doing trading, or if they're interacting, or they're buying insurance, or any number of things, or they're staking, like all kinds of applications where deeper insight can really help users use your product more effectively and with more confidence. At the same time, you may be wondering, well, what's holding us back? What's hard about this? Well, one is the reliability of results. You probably know that large language models and generative AI in general is not reliable, right? It will produce hallucinations. It will imagine things. It will come up with things. So how can you deploy it when you can't control the output? And often organizations don't know how to measure quality. So organizations may get paralyzed to not deploy at all, just have a demo that they never know how to move forward, or launch something that doesn't work well and gets orphaned, doesn't get used. The development can be complicated, right? There's new skills, learning how to prompt and build with LLMs. Integrating into your product can be challenging, right? So security and privacy and compliance. But also, as you start using some of the APIs, the cost and latency, rate limit, scalability, and customizing for your product can be challenging. And in censorship, right? The idea of using a centralized service can make it possible to be locked in, where you limit access, limit scalability, and yet open source is still a little bit behind in this space. So what we see is, for reliability of results, you can really do a lot in terms of having a paradigm of developing so that you have multiple layers of defense. So generating useful results, verifying them, so checking and revising them, so you can have multiple levels of quality control and then return higher quality results. You can also do a lot by building specialized agents that result in breaking down the problem into a team where you get higher reliability and you have better validated components that you can test and measure for your specific analytics, your specific problem. And finally, give enough cues to the user that even if they're not a technical programmer, they understand the domain, know what's going on, and can verify. In terms of model product readiness, there's a lot you can do in terms of tuning the models, optimizing, and building integration, right? So that can be dramatically improved. And it's easier with a clean framework for agents to integrate and to build for the future as models get more powerful. In terms of centralization, we think ultimately it's going to be incredibly important for the Web3 world to come forward and help give more broad access to compute and to have a marketplace where open source models can be chosen from and give a lot of options. So our view on this is products and protocols really benefit by integrating AI. We've built an open source framework called Council to make it easy to do this, to make it easy to do the kind of use of models. And then, we're working on, we have a protocol that will enable decentralized compute to really power these applications where you can have GPUs running a variety of open models that you can rely on. So that's our approach. We think that that will really enable this kind of transformational use of generative AI for the Web3 industry, both today's needs in building into dApps and protocols and communities, and going forward, allow more confident decentralized execution, even integrated into smart contracts. I'll touch on one thing that in terms of decentralized execution, we think there needs to be a range. For dApps, you probably want to have an optimistic approach that's very low overhead. But if you start integrating into smart contracts for autonomous agents, you probably want something like pessimistic execution with staking, where you have multiple independent calculations. ZK proofs is promising research, but probably too high overhead for most applications. So we see self-service analytics as an area for real differentiation and value creation. And as you think about testing out approaches, really important to do proofs of concept to assess how do you get reliability, how do you give users the right cues, how do you integrate into your product, how do you simplify development, and how do you have a roadmap to decentralizing. We're addressing these challenges with Council that's open source and the ChainML protocol. You can learn more about those here, at chainml.net/council. Of course, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to talk further, I'll be out in the build area where we have a booth, and happy to chat and to answer any of your questions. So thank you for your time here today.